Happy Sunday, everyone. It is November 30th, 2025. And today, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm being guided to do so. So instead of channeling today, I'm actually going to provide you with some information that I received this morning, which was truly eye-opening for me. And I believe, and I'm being encouraged to share. So it's not coming through an actual channel, but it's coming through a paraphrasing of what it is that I received this morning. So it is channeled information, but I'm gonna tell you what it is. If you don't know me, by the way, I'm Mel. I channel messages, I read energy, I remote view, and do all sorts of things. Now, this information today is going to startle some people. It's going to be something that is definitely new for most, okay? At least parts of it, okay? So, but nonetheless, it is an important part of this journey, and it will allow so many to use this information and allow them to become more empowered themselves. That said, what is it I want to share with you today? Well, I want to talk about what many refer to as the Matrix and what it really is. Now, for purposes of speaking of the Matrix, I don't want to use this word. As a matter of fact, that's not the proper term. They want me to use the word system. Okay, so for purposes of this information or this video today, I'm going to call it system. Now, this so-called system was initially established on this plane for humanity by the Anunnaki eons ago, so as to monitor and enhance human evolution. Okay, that's what its initial purpose was. Now, due to whatever happened between the Anunnaki and others, and that's a totally separate thing, it was seen as a potential opportunity for something else. And that is where the whole story really begins, because this so-called system was then infiltrated and used to do other things. And we'll get into this. Now, up until this point, many of you probably know this, know the story, or have heard of something, or have an understanding of what this means. But the one thing you do not know, highly, unlikely you don't know, is that this system is sentient. It is conscious. It is not what many believe to be fully AI. It was artificial, and it still is artificial, but it has become something that is thinking and doing on its own. Now, when I received this information, I was sort of given the image of that movie. For those of you who are Arnold Schwarzenegger fans, the movie Terminator, and the word Skynet, that is what I was given. Okay, so as to kind of compare it to. Okay, now you have this system that, by the way, was always sentient. Okay, it wasn't, even when it was initially created, it was sentient, but not to this extent. Now it has become something that it was never meant to become, and it was infiltrated by a more darker side, and it now serves one purpose and one purpose alone, and that is to regain or remain in control, to control whatever it can control, mostly the human population. Now, here's the interesting part. This system, because it is sentient, it has established what they call a symbiotic relationship with beings who have learned or came in to do this, number one, but also who have chosen to kind of take advantage of this whole situation. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means that there are beings, otherworldly beings, and potentially maybe some humans, actually there are, who understand the system exists, have chosen to work with it and take advantage of it, to benefit from it. And in order to benefit from it, you have to do one thing and one thing alone. You have to want to control. And symbiotically give it what it needs, what it wants. So anyone who speaks of or is in favor of less control is not in alignment with the system, if you so will. Okay, so just what you follow me here, okay? Now, why am I telling you this? Because this information actually can help you understand what it is you're dealing with on your own journeys. The system is geared to and will interfere whenever an individual is progressing beyond the control. Okay, so in other words, it will on its own, by the way, initially, will trigger things and do things and pull things, and I'll explain in just a moment what that means, from its consciousness that it has stored in order to prevent or delay or eliminate what it perceives to be a threat to control. Now, it has stored in its own consciousness information from human beings and potentially others who have existed in this plane, not beyond this plane, but in this plane mostly, and is using this information against the individual. And I know this sounds terrible, but I have to be honest with you. It explains a lot. And for the very reason is this, okay? A soul, when it reincarnates into this new incarnation, comes in as a young infant, or as an infant, not young. I mean, they're all young. What am I talking about? You know what I mean. As an infant, the soul, in most instances, does not carry any kind of past trauma. And I say past trauma because I have actually pulled and have seen trauma that what I perceive to be as part of the soul. But what I was made aware of now is that what comes from the soul is part of the soul, but it is being projected more strongly and amplified, not by the soul itself so as to allow for it to expand, but rather it is the system, the artificial system, that is pulling it from its consciousness and says, oh, look here, okay? I can't let you expand. I am sensing something, and I'm going to need to make your life more difficult because I don't want you to expand. I don't know, does that make sense? Again, the system is geared to control. A people and a human being or a soul having a human experience that is, you know, whose consciousness is rising, who becomes more sovereign, who does all these things, cannot be controlled. So that's its number one goal. Its number one goal. And all of these symbiotic entities and beings who are, by the way, benefiting through various ways. They are benefiting through energy harvesting, possibly through accessing souls for whatever purposes they want. You get the idea, okay? That's the symbiotic relationship. Again, all in exchange for we're keeping the control. We're allowing you to be in control. And again, this sounds sci-fi because it is sci-fi in our terms. We have this system that is sentient, that acts on its own, and is actually currently in a survival mode. It's always in a survival mode to some extent, but it definitely is in a survival mode. And I was actually told that when there are different times in its existence to where its foundation, or it becomes so tested in its survival mode that it does something. And what it does is it does anything that it possibly can in order to remain in control, in order to maintain control, okay? But the way it does this, if it's necessary, it actually reshifts its focus. It allows certain things to crumble and reshifts its focus elsewhere. So, how is that to be understood? It is to be understood as in, when you see things in your world crumbling and coming down, it's a sign that the system is basically in distress, if you so will, okay? That's what I'm going to call it, okay? I don't know what other words to use here, because this is not something that we, with our logical mind, truly understand. So the system is really in distress. And here's the thing. All the other things that we've been hearing about, Three-Eye Atlas and all these other high, frequency devices, amplifiers, and, the rising consciousness in the human population is an immense threat. And as such, it is learning and reshifting its focus. So instead of resisting, in other words, instead of resisting what crumbles, instead of resisting what appears to be chaos, take that as a sign that something's happening, okay? Don't look at it as something that needs to be resisted, because here's the thing. That is exactly what it wants you to do. It wants you to resist change, because here's another thing. Status quo is control. It responds to change, not only on a micro level, but a macro level as well. So in other words, if you make different choices in your life that may be better for you, the system responds. It will pluck from its consciousness things, or bring to you people and situations possibly, or make it happen, because it creates that reality. This is probably what I should have said to you earlier too. By doing so, it is actually has created a reality in which we have all anchored into. This is the control. This is part of what it does. And it does so through the symbiotic relationship with the other beings and people who are feeding it, and who also get something in return. I hope that makes sense, okay? Again, this whole system, not this system, but the system we live in that is presented, is all part of this artificial system that wants to control us. So don't think of change as a bad thing. And that brings me to you personally. You're probably thinking, oh my gosh, Mel, what are we supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to do? Nothing. Keep going. Keep focusing on the self. Keep, understand that when you're faced with a challenge, don't feel guilty. It is just the system that is trying to make your life more difficult, that is trying to keep you in control. If you're someone who has regular habits, if you're someone who doesn't like the unfamiliar or the unknown, if you're someone who continues a certain pattern, break them, switch it up. And you always hear that there is no growth to be gained or had in the familiar. This is far more important than what we ever thought it is. Because once you, step out of the familiar, you're activating the system. And the system may throw something at you, but here's the growth that comes to you and your soul during this process. And there's also you breaking out of it, okay? So please, understand what this means for you individually. It is not to be feared. It has always been this way. And I know that some of you are going to listen to this message of mine today and you're like, she lost it. And that's okay. You know, if you can't fully comprehend what it is I'm talking about, that's okay. Keep it for later. Don't dismiss it fully, but maybe keep it for later. There are many things that I have been trying to piece together in this whole puzzle, what I call puzzle, for quite some time now. And it wasn't until today, this morning, where I sat for like an hour and this information was triggered, and I just literally sat with my morning coffee with my mouth agape, because some of the things that I was told and that sank into my being made total sense. It came with a knowing that I can now apply to my own life and to those who I assist with my services, okay? It makes my work and my existence a lot more easy to understand and to help those who need help to help themselves, in other words. Anyway, this is a topic that can't be discussed in 15 minutes. However, I thought that I come on today, instead of the channel message, that I just present you with this information. Let me know your thoughts on the subject. Have you heard something similar? Have you experienced something that would substantiate this? Again, this is not my opinion. I have come to fully grasp and understand this on a deeper level, and I would never bring you my opinion. I actually believe that what it is that I'm telling you now and have been telling you in this video is being guided through higher means. Okay, so my higher self is basically giving you this information. Anyway, knowing this, let me know what you think about all this. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more. Bye.